Hey, I'm Chelsea, an ALT with the JET program, and this video will be about my mindset for approaching the statement of purpose and a short Q&A at the end about my life in Japan so far. As a disclaimer, I am not someone with any authority on reviewing applications. This is just my experience being an ALT for 1 year. As you are preparing to apply to the JET program, I believe there are some key questions you should ask yourself and think through critically before you decide to apply. Number 1, why do you want to be an ALT? I think most people who apply to the JET program have some type of interest in Japan, in its culture, food, language, history, etc. And that's wonderful. It's actually a requirement to apply for the JET program. But writing, "I'm interested in Japanese culture," isn't going to be enough for your statement of purpose. You need to go many levels deeper and share why that interest has inspired you to want to move to Japan. The other thing is, why do you want to be an ALT specifically? Some local government is going to hire you, sponsor you to move to Japan and to work as a teacher. So you need to share why do you think it's important to do the work of an ALT, whether that's engaging with kids, whether that's about English education, whatever you think is important and really speaks to you, talk about that and talk about that deeply. Number 2, do you like working with kids and teenagers? ALTs are placed in public and private schools from elementary to high school. So you're working with kids from 5 years old to 17 years old. And if you don't like working with young people, then I think this job is going to be really hard and won't be a great fit for you. Number 3, are you okay with uncertainty and change? So many aspects of my life have felt really unknown and uncertain, and I didn't know enough before going into things, and I've learned to be okay with that and to embrace the challenges as they come. It's really hard to move to a new country where you don't speak the language. There are aspects of my job where I show up and things are entirely different than I expected them to be, and I've learned how to pivot really quickly. There are aspects of my life where I had to jump through so many different bureaucratic hoops in order to get anything done. It's really interesting reconciling the life that you currently have, the life that you imagine Japan will be like, and then if you get here, your actual life in Japan, because they're all really different. Number 4, are you open-minded to learning about a different culture? There are so many wonderful things about living in Japan, things that you see online and on TikTok and YouTube about beautiful vlogs and places that you want to travel. But the beauty about living in a place for a long time is that you get to experience a lot more things a lot slowly that aren't going to be listed on blog posts or on bucket lists of things when you are just a tourist. I think it's important to know that your lived experiences in your home country are going to be very different than what Japan is actually like. And how do you also embrace all of the beauty and intricacies of living in Japan? And number 5, do you have formal teaching credentials? I'm not asking this because you have to have credentials to apply to JET. You don't need to have TESOL or TEFL, though if you have those certificates, you can of course include them on the application. But if you have a master's or doctoral degree in education and are expecting to have this be a very robust career building experience, this probably isn't the role for you. Also, the education system in your home country and in Japan are probably very different. So if you're interested in exploring those things, I think that'd be really great. And I also think there are opportunities for you to be able to use your skill sets in the classroom, but just know that our jobs aren't that serious. Let's get into writing the statement of purpose. First, I would open up the application and copy the prompt and questions into a separate Word document so that you can reference them easily. Next, I would go under each question and make notes of how you plan to answer all of the questions, because you need to answer all of them through your entire statement of purpose. There are 2 key things I want you to think about as you are writing your statement of purpose. You need to be specific and go deep. So be specific. Don't just write about your skill sets and tell the reader what they are, but you need to explain what exactly that skill set looks like for you and why that's important in your work as an ALT. For example, many people will write that they are organized, which is a really great skill set, but it doesn't tell me anything about you specifically. What kind of organization are you good at? Is it a spatial sense of organization where you can walk into a room and you understand how to break students up into groups? Or you have really great awareness of all the materials in the class? Do you have really great time management skills where you're able to pace things out, pivot, make adjustments when things are going off schedule? You need to talk specifically about what does that organization look like, or else I don't understand what it fully means. The second is to go deep. Pick one or two key experiences and tie them directly to the role of being an ALT. That includes the type of work that you did, why that work was important, how that directly ties to what you will do as an ALT in the classroom or around cultural exchange. For example, in my statement of purpose, I talked about a club that I was involved in at my university where I got to develop curriculum around diversity education, and I tied that to how I would approach lesson planning as an ALT, as well as my approach to engaging all of my students in the classroom. My other example was about my experience studying abroad in Singapore and how I wanted to approach my time living in Japan a little bit differently based on what I learned the first time I studied abroad. Because the statement of purpose is such a limited amount, every single sentence counts. Every sentence should be answering one of the questions in the prompt or elaborating on an idea that you've presented earlier. You should also have people you trust read through your statement of purpose to give you feedback, and if there's anything that they don't understand, you need to go back and clarify those points. I'm also happy to read through your statements of purpose if you feel comfortable sharing with me, and you can send me a link on Instagram. Speaking of Instagram, let's get into some questions y'all asked me about being an ALT. When is the best time to apply as an ALT in Japan? If you're applying through the JET program, then apply right now. Applications are open in the fall, usually in October to mid-November, and that gives you enough time to ask your references to write their letters of recommendation and for you to write your statement of purpose and do any medical tests that are required. It takes about a year from applying to actually moving to Japan, so that's a really long timeline for a lot of people, but there are other private companies that can get you to be an ALT or an English teacher in a shorter time span. How are the working conditions? I think the working conditions are pretty good. There's really good work-life balance. I work from 8:30 till 4:30 every day, and there are 6 classes during a day, and I'll usually work anywhere from 3 to 5 of those classes per day, so there's always time for me to have time for myself and to study or just kind of decompress. So yeah, I think it's really good. How are you enjoying your time as an ALT, and is it harder than you thought? I am really enjoying my time as an ALT. It gives me enough of my own life to get to explore Japan at my own pace. And working as an ALT, yeah, it's definitely different than I thought. I hadn't had formal classroom experience working with kids. I'm at elementary and junior high school. I've tutored before, but tutoring 1 or 2 students at a time versus engaging with 40 students in a classroom are totally different things. Was the interview really as tough as people say it is? I think interviews in general are just very intimidating. There was this really great article I read on the Tofugu website that was also a podcast where they gave examples of the types of questions that can be asked and also just your mindset and general interview tips. So I'll link that in the description. Does the BOE pay for the Japanese language school? So the BOE is your Board of Education, and if you are a municipal JET, you'll be working at a Board of Education in your local government, and you will probably be attending multiple schools. So my BOE doesn't pay for my Japanese language, but every single BOE is different, so I honestly don't know. How much money did you have to live off of the first month of getting to Japan? I saved up $4,000 to come. $2,000 was for a car that I thought I was going to buy, but I actually ended up just leasing. And then $2,000 was just the recommendation that my supervisor told me before I arrived. You definitely need to have some money with you as a buffer while you are getting settled and handling moving expenses, because you won't get paid until after your first month of working here for most people. I was fortunate to have my apartment be furnished, so I didn't have to buy my essentials right up front, but there are many ALTs who move into an empty apartment and have to figure out their appliances and furniture right away. Did you choose rural or urban? Which one do you recommend? So on the application, you have the option to list a preference of if you wanted an urban, rural, or island placement. I didn't put any preferences for my placement because I was really open to anywhere that they would want me to go. And I ended up in a rural placement, and I really love it. I love how slow my life is. That was something I was really looking for. There are, of course, pros and cons for living anywhere that you are. It really just depends on what you're looking for. Do you know any married couples that applied to JET together? I don't, because I came abroad single. I really can't speak about that process at all. Did you apply for early arrival, and how was it? No, I didn't. I actually applied in 2019 and then COVID happened, and I waited until September of 2021 before I was finally able to come. I wasn't ready for early placement. I'm actually really glad that I had that extra time because it gave me more time to save money, and I was able to take a semester of Japanese at my community college so that I felt a little bit more prepared coming to Japan. If you know you have the time to do those things, I think that's really awesome. But if you have like a stricter timeline for yourself, then I think early arrival can be great. How are your Japanese coworkers treating you? Are they mean, scared of you? Tatemae? My Japanese coworkers are really nice and really friendly, and they've been really helpful of getting me sorted and settled here, and will invite me to things that are happening. I wish my Japanese was better so I could have better conversations with them, but I'm also at a workplace, so how casual I can be with people, it really depends. Is it better to come to Japan via JET or English teaching company or school job sponsorship? I don't know. I came on JET, so that's the only thing I can speak of. I think JET's really great because it is a program sponsored by the Japanese government. So there are a lot of things that can be taken care of. It really depends. I mean, every person's experience on the JET program are totally different. There are many options, it just which one works best for you. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you have any more questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, or you can message me on Instagram. I'd be happy to help. I know that this time can be very stressful with applications to be due in about a month. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. See you!